Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Today we're talking about the Saurus Knights. Now, arguably, this is one of our most beautiful All right, I couldn't finish that sentence. This is not one of our best looking models. It is a little what they call derpy, but for some reason, I just love the little guys. These Saurus Knights, I think, are going to see a new life in Age of Sigmar 3.0. In the previous edition of Age of Sigmar, we ran them a lot in Kotl's Claw. We ran them in big groups of 10 to put a lot of buffs on them. Mortal wounds, send them forward with a bunch of support, dump command points into them, all that kind of fun stuff. It's way different in Age of Sigmar 3. One of the biggest changes is that you can only use one command point per turn, and that really hurts these Saurus Knights. But I think they still have a place in our army and in our lists, and we're gonna look at that today. How they operate in Age of Sigmar 3.0. So, quick overview of their Warscroll. They do have 2 wounds each. They have a movement of 8, which is somewhat slow for cavalry. So this is not your quick alpha striking unit. They're only moving 8, so on a standard deployment, they'd have to make a 10-inch charge. And we lost our nice battalion that gave them an extra 3 inches of that. So these guys probably aren't making your alpha strike. And that's fine. I don't think that's their role. They do have a 4-up save, so that can be easily boosted for a command point to a 3-up. Just always remember you got that in your back pocket. If these guys are getting hit, you can boost that up to a 3-up if you need to. They have quite a few attacks, and that's where a lot of their benefit comes on their Warscroll is just from the quantity of attacks. So you have the blade or the war spear, and you can take either one you want. I generally always take the war spear because you do get a bonus when you charge. But both of them have 2 attacks. The blades are 3s and 3s. The war spears are 4s and 3s. No rend, 1 damage. And then you have 2 different jaw attack profiles. And this is interesting because in Coalesced, you add 1 to the jaw attacks. And so for these Saurus Knights, you get to add 2 to attacks total. 1 to each of these jaw profiles, which is pretty nice. So powerful jaws, they're 1 attack, 5s and 4s. Not a very good attack there. No rend, 1 damage. And then snapping jaws, you have 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. Now, as many attacks as I said we have, I think that's kind of balanced out by the lack of rend in that column. We have no rend on any of these attacks, and this is one of the Achilles heel of the Saurus Knights. This hurt them before. Having no rend hurt them in Age of Sigmar 2, but in Age of Sigmar 3, where a lot of stuff can be boosted +1 to their save very easily, having no rend really hurts. And so these guys won't be doing a whole lot of damage unless we can get some mortal wounds output onto them. So let's look at what else they've got here. They do have a Saurus Knight Alpha on their Warscroll. So one of these models in this group of 5, which is what they come in, is going to be the Alpha. Now that's important because that means that they can spend command points on themselves. Now these units they don't have to have a hero nearby to spend a command point to give them, let's say, +1 to their hit or +1 to their save or inspiring presence or those anything that you can use command points for in Age of Sigmar 3.0. The Alpha in this unit can do that. So that's very nice. Makes it much more usable. Makes it a lot easier to buff these units. They do have a Star Drake icon, 1 in every 5. Can have the icon bear. Subtract 1 from bravery of enemy units while they're within 6 of any friendly Star Drake icon bear. So this gives you that bravery debuff that we see on a lot of our Saurus units. War Drummer, 1 in every 5 models can be a War Drummer. You can reroll charge rolls for units that include War Drummers. This is actually, it's really nice. A lot of musicians have this ability in battle line units and stuff. And the Saurus Knights do as well. Let them reroll their charges for free, which is always nice. Ability Celestite War Spear. This is where I always choose the War Spear. Add 1 to the damage characteristics of this unit's Celestite War Spears if this unit made a charge move in the same turn. A lot of other War Scrolls give you like an extra pip of rend or something if you charge, but we do get 1 extra damage here on the War Spear. I go ahead and take it. These to hit and wound profiles aren't great anyway. And so having that extra damage is nice when you get them to go through. So Not the most impressive Warscroll. We have a lot of attacks, but if we just look at the base damage of these things, the swords are doing about 4.3 damage to a 4-up save, and the spears are doing 3, almost 4, versus a 4-up save. This is not on the charge. This is just the base damage here. And so they're fairly close, about a half a point of damage different. Not really enough to make a big change here to make me want to take one or the other. But adding the extra damage to the spears will kind of pushing me over the edge. These guys are going to be my screen unit. So if they're getting charged, I don't even care what weapon they have. If I'm charging with them, that's when I'd want the spears. So I end up taking the spears on these guys. But apart from the Warscroll, I think one of the biggest changes to the Knights is the coherency rules. And this is where I think the Knights are really going to shine in Seraphim lists. Because if we look at coherency, we've got to keep a unit of 5 or less. They can be within 1 inch of one other model. If you have 6 or more models, you have to be 1 inch of 2 models. And so that hurts a lot of our other screens. So like if you look here at the Skinks, they have to stay base to base because they can stay base to base. They could go rank up, but this is their maximum screening distance right here, base to base. They're 25 millimeters, which is just slightly under 1 inch. So this guy is within 1 inch of that unit, that model, and that model, just barely, but he is. So that's as far as they can screen. The Warriors, you got to do this kind of funny dance where you're keeping an inch in between these guys so that you can make sure and touch 2 of them. But this is about as far as they're going to go. So they're not screening very far either. But these Knights, because they can keep just under an inch in between each one of them, they can actually spread out pretty far. They make our best screening unit in the game in Seraphim in our army. And so I've really liked playing them. I've played a couple games with them as my screens. They're on the front line, and they do fantastic. A great job, a good save, a decent save for a battle line, 2 wounds each, and they have a little bit of damage, which we'll look at in a second. But a great screening unit, and you do need screens in this game because deployments are so close to each other, and a lot of stuff can cross that 18 inches, make a charge turn 1. You are going to want to put up some screens. I like the Knights, especially in Coalesced, Thunderlizards, Kotl's Claw, whatever you're going to play, Coalesced, Knights, I'm really liking them as my screen. Now, would you ever take them as more than 5? And to be honest, I don't think so. Because if you look at what a deployment looks like when you're down to 10, or when you're up to 10 models, you have to spend a reinforcement point on them. But now you've got to get that coherency again. You can't spread out like you were. You can't line them all up on the line like this because now they're over 6 models and they have to be within 1 inch of 2 models. So you end up lining 3 of them up here on the back line like this to keep them within range of each of these, so that if you lose one, you don't lose half the unit. So they're all within 1 inch of 2 models. Now, if you lose one, you're going to have to take them off the front line, unfortunately, until you get 2 down. Then you can take this one off. But look at what your attack profile looks like. You've doubled the size of this unit, but you have 7 on the line. All you've added are these 2 Knights that are going to be attacking. They don't have enough range. These spears don't have enough range to attack over the back of them. And so you're looking at only adding 2 attacking models for double the price. And so I'm not a big fan of that. You've also shrunk their screening area. They're actually a smaller screen now than these Warriors. You could spread them out a little bit, give them a little bit more room in here, but not a whole lot because you've got to keep them coherent with these 3 in the back. And so they've all of a sudden become a lot smaller screen unit. And now you're looking to put out more damage, but you've only got another 2 guys that are attacking. I wanted to see what it would look like if I tripled it, if I used 2 reinforcement points, which you can use on battle line, and brought it into 3 full units. And you can get more on the front lines now. You can get 10 on the front lines, but now you've still got 5 that have to help everyone keep coherency. And this makes it hard too if you're like piling in to like a hero that's right here. you're trying to pile all these guys in around it, and now you've got to worry about wrapping these bat guys to keep them in those coherencies. It makes it pretty difficult. It's not impossible, but it makes it pretty difficult. But now we've tripled the size of this unit, tripled the cost, and all we've done is doubled the output that you're going to get from this unit. So not a very efficient use of our points. You've also taken up about the same amount of screening space as a unit of 5 did. So that's why I'm favoring this MSU style with these knights, putting them in units of 5 like this, using them as screens, and then if you need to, pump them up with some heroes we're going to look at in a second and send them in, and they'll still do decent damage. So one trick I found, this unit of 5 covers about 16, maybe 16 and a half inches wide on the board. And so taking 3 of these, if you're just looking to like cover the most of the board, most of that front line, you can do that with 3 of these units. 3 units will cover most of the playable section of the deployment zone. And so I've found that 3 units will pretty much protect me from anything that's going to come screaming across the board from their deployment zone. A lot of times, Knights were played in Kotl's Claw. Now, Kotl's Claw kind of got hit hard in the Age of Sigmar 3.0, and some of those reasons we'll look at here on the allegiance abilities. So their main allegiance ability is the Savagery Incarnate. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Kotl's Claw source units that made a charge move in the same turn. Now, this is still usable. This is probably the thing that still saves this allegiance ability, this sub-faction, as something that's still playable. So you get +1 to your hit rolls. This is not using the command point, so you could always use the command point if you needed to help negate a -1 to hit, but you can't ever go over +1 to hit cumulatively. So this is still good. You still want to use this on Knights. You could still use this on your Carnosaurs. It's still useful. And so this is the one saving grace I think of why I would still play Kotl's Claw. But you can get that ability just by using a command point. And so I can get that same +1 to hit in Thunderlizards. So it's not really required to be in Kotl's Claw to get that +1 to hit anymore. I can get that in any sub-faction just using a command point on the Knights. The command ability, you can use this command ability to start the combat phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Kotl's Claw Saurus unit, wholly within 24 of the Saurus hero. That unit counts as making a charge for the purposes of Savagery Incarnate. So basically, +1 to hit, which is already a generic command point. So this command ability is absolutely useless. The only saving thing is that it's wholly within 24, but it doesn't really matter anymore because the things in Saurus that we would be using for this can use the ability on themselves. And so there's really no reason for that command ability. It's pointless. You can get it with the normal +1 to hit, and you can only use 1 command point per phase on a unit anyway, so you can't even double that up or anything. So that one's completely useless. Dominant Predator, which is a command trait. Roll a dice each time this general is used to issue a command to a friendly Kotl's Claw source unit. On a 4-up, you receive 1 command point. Now, this used to be great because you would use a Carnosaur and you would pass out command abilities like candy. I'm gonna explode 6s. I'm gonna give +1 to hit. I'm gonna do all these things, and I'm going to pump these things up and refund those points. And you could use that a ton on a Carnosaur. It was a lot of fun, and you could use them on these Knights a lot. But to be honest, I'm gonna try to get out of that every time I'm in a Kotl's Claw unit. So I'm crossing that one out too. I'm getting out of that. I'm gonna make a non-source unit my general in Kotl's Claw so I can get out, because the most you're going to use this for is once per phase, and it's on a 4-up. So it's a 50-50 shot whether you get it one time or not. It's just not as useful as it used to be. Not as useful. Artifact of Power, Eviscerating Blade, an unmodified 6 on a weapon to hit will do 2 mortal wounds in addition. So this is still okay, but it does have that effect of now you can only choose 1 effect when you get an unmodified 6. So normally you'd put that on like a Carnosaur with the War Spear which is going to explode anyway for extra hits. And you would use his command ability to give you more hits. And then this would give you mortals on top of that. And you could just like to the roof. We're going all the way with this, using command points, refunding them back to yourself. You can't do a lot of that anymore. It's still a decent artifact, so I'm not going to X that one out. It's still useful. You have to take it if you're in Kotl's Claw. You can still get some mortal wounds from the Carnosaur, so it's not bad, but it's not quite as useful as it used to be. So Kotl's Claw got hurt a lot. I think it's still playable, but as far as Knights go, I've kind of digressed a little bit, but as far as Knights go, Knights are just as playable in any of the other sub-factions. Primarily Thunderlizards is what I'm looking at. You know how much I like Thunderlizards, but I think it's good in Coalesced Thunderlizards. You can still play them in Kotl's Claw. So let's look at what some of the buffs for the Knights can be. So I think one of the easiest ones is on the charge with spears in Coalesce, so we get our extra jaw attacks. Now we're getting our base Warscroll damage up a little bit higher. It's up to 7. It's almost twice what it was before just by adding them in Coalesce for those extra attacks, and we're charging. So it's not bad. It's not bad. A very easy thing to do is just +1 to hit. So they can do that on themselves because they have a champion in the unit, and that gets them up to 9.25 damage versus a 4-up save. And so that's very easy if they're charging. You've got a battle line unit. It's worth about 100 points. It's doing about 10 damage. That's kind of what I want to see in a battle line unit with some minimal buffs there. So that's doing decent, especially for something that it was probably your screen, but now you're charging in. You needed to do a little damage, maybe clear a battle line or something, and it might do that if it can get some decent rolls there. Another ability, if you are taking a Scarvet, the Scarvet, it's probably not worth spending his extra command point for the 6s to hit on it instead of just the normal +1 to hit. Now, if you've already used your +1 to hit somewhere else on another unit, you could use the Scarvet's command ability on a different unit of Knights. It does literally the same amount of damage. +1 to hit or extra hit on 6 does the same thing. Wish we could still stack it. You can't really do that anymore. If you're in Kotl's Claw, you can get that +1 to hit, and you can still kind of stack it to do some more hits that way, but it does help. I think one of the best buffs you can actually do for these Knights is not even a Saurus hero, and that's the Skink Starpriest. So we've got 5 Knights in Coalesced, so they get +1 jaw attacks. On the charge, +1 to damage to their spears, +1 to hit either with a command point or in Kotl's Claw. And your Skink Starpriest, in the hero phase, they're going to point their staff at those Knights that you know you're going to be charging with, and now they're going to do a mortal wound on 6s to wound. And so you can also do the Hand of Glory spell, which is great from the Skink Starpriest, and that's going to be reroll hit rolls of 1. And there's not a lot of rerolls to hit in the game anymore, and especially on the Knights who have a ton of attacks, that rerolls 1s to hit really helps you get that train moving, especially when you're trying to fish for those 6s to wound. And so with just those buffs, you're talking 1-foot hero, 1 command point, and you're up to 15, almost 16 damage versus a 4-up save. That right there just like skyrocketed these guys. They have so many attacks that Star Priest is fantastic on them to get those mortal wounds through. And now we're kind of making up for the fact that we don't have Rend, but now we have access to mortal wounds. So that right there is what I love about the Knights. They make a great screen unit with 1 hero. He's 130 points. So you need these foot heroes to fill out some of the better battalions. And they fit in right there perfectly with those Saurus Knights and let them really bring up their damage big time. You can add a Scarvet to that if, let's say, you've charged in Kotl's Claw, so you get the +1 there, and then you can spend the Scarvet's command point to explode the hits, plus the Skink Starpriest. You can get up to 18 damage versus a 4-up save, but to be honest, I don't think it's worth it. If I can get 15 in Thunderlizards for 1 command point and the Starpriest versus 18 in Kotl's Claw with a Scarvet, 1 command point, and a Starpriest, why would I do that? I'm just going to take them in Thunderlizards and get, 3 less damage? Yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer now. these guys are fantastic with the Starpriest, and that's all you really need. You need a Starpriest, a command point, and you're good to go. So let's look at maybe some lists I've got prepared. I got a couple lists for us to look at. This one right here is a Kotl's Claw list. I wanted to see if I could run all my Scar veterans in this one. And so we are doing Kotl's Claw. I've got 3 Scar veterans in this one. And you can see 2 of them are in Warlord, so because I can fit 2 commanders that have more than 10 wounds in Warlord. And having the Warlord Core Battalion gives me access to another enhancement. And I am taking the Artifact enhancement because I want that Amulet of Destiny. That 5-up ward save on a Scar veteran is just fantastic. That will make them a lot tougher to kill. That was kind of their downfall in the last edition, was that these guys, they could do some damage. If you pump them up right, they can do some damage, but they will die so quick. That 4-up save just disappears quickly. Now we can spend a command point to put them on a 3-up. Now they've got a 5-up ward save. That will make one of these guys quite difficult to kill. The other Scar vet, I'm giving him the Eviscerating Blade. That's one that you have to give. And I'm not making either one of them my Warlord or my General. I'm going to give that to my Slann, and we'll talk to him in a second. But that gets me out of that command trait that would just refund 1 command point maybe on a turn. So I do have another Scar veteran. These guys are fantastically priced at $215. In my Battle Regiment, that's the other Core Battalion I'm taking. And 2 Skink Starpriests in the Warlord. You need the foot... I call them the foot heroes with less than 10 wounds in the Warlord battalion, and so those guys fit in there well. My taking both of them Hand of Glory just to double up on that spell. Great spell, and I want to make sure if one of them gets killed, I still have it available for somebody else. Slon Starmaster, taking Arcane Might as my command trait. Since he's going to be my general, I'm going to take the Arcane Might. That lets me re-roll 1 casting, unbinding, dispelling turn per hero phase. So that really gives the Slon, who's going to be +1, maybe +2 in this list if you use the Sacred Asterisms on him, but lets him re-roll that casting. That's fantastic for doing like the Comet's Call, the comet that's coming down across the board, or if you really want to stop that one spell that somebody's putting out, then re-roll it to make sure you get it. His spell, Stellar Tempest, lets us kind of deal with hordes and stuff. Love that spell. I always take that one. And then I've got 4 units of MSU Knights. That's because that's how many I have. But also, I just like this. You've got enough for screens if you want to, but also you're going to be trying to buff up 2 per turn and send them in. So you're going to try to buff up 2 with the Skink Starpriest, send them in, use their command points that you can on them, and let them do the damage, and then hit with another wave after that if possible. So we've got 4 units of Knights and 1 unit of Saurus Guard. They're just there to help keep the Slon alive. And then I included a Bastiladon in the Battle Regiment as my behemoth there. That gives me 4 monsters in this list and gives me some shooting with the Bastiladon. He'll probably sit back with the Slon, kind of babysit the Slon, and be able to shoot some stuff up front. One of the biggest problems with Kotl's Claw is you never have shooting in Kotl's Claw. So I try to include a little bit of shooting in there. So that you can take out those threats that you really need to. Bastiladon's a great piece for that. I did have 40 points left over, so you can include a endless spell if you want to. I put Prismatic Palisades just to help protect the Slon and the Saurus Guard, who are probably in the backfield. And that was 2 battalions, a Warlord and a Battle Regiment battalion for 5 drops, which is pretty standard. And we took an extra artifact for exactly 2,000 points and 111 wounds. So that's should be a pretty fun Kotl's Claw list, I think. We've got 3 Carnosaurs, which is always a lot of fun to play with, a bunch of Knights, your Slon, your Bastiladon. I think it's a decently well-rounded list. Probably not going to take out any tournaments, but if you're looking for a fun Kotl's Claw list, maybe that fits the bill. I also got a Thunderlizard list. This is a list I've run, and it's actually a lot of fun. You guys know I love Stegodons, so of course expect to see Stegodon lists in most of these videos. Here we're taking Thunderlizards, Grand Strategy Beastmaster, which is just keep alive a monster by the end of the game. And Stegodon with Skink Chief is in my Warlord battalion. And of course we're trying to get to that that sweet, sweet Amulet of Destiny 5-up ward save by taking a Warlord. So in my Warlord is a Stegodon. We've got 2 Skink Starpriests and then 1 Battle Lion. That fills out the Warlord. The Skink Stegodon Chief is my General with Prime War Beast to give him extra attacks. That 5-up ward save, and of course the bow. I'm taking another Stegodon with Skink Chief in the Battle Regiment, and he'll get the it says Command Trait Prime War Beast. That's not true. Artifact Fusel of Conflagration and Skystreak Bow. And then in that same battalion, this kind of gets a little tricky with this Engine of Gods, but this fills out your artillery slot. So the Engine of Gods fills out your artillery slot in Battle Regiment, which is fantastic because that gives me 3 hefty heroes and all on monsters. That's what I love about that. And you can still keep this down to a 5-drop list. And so you get the extra enhancement for the artifact. You get 3 big Stegodons as your heroes. Love it. Then I've got my 2 Star Priests, of course. They're going to be there to help me generate command points. Be my wizards. Hand of Glory, which is always nice. And so fill out the Warlord Battalion. We've also got 3 units of Saurus Knights. And the way I played them was basically covering the board with them. If I felt like the other person had the ability to alpha strike. If they weren't, if it was an opponent I was playing that could ambush, deep strike kind of thing, then you're playing those in a bubble with your Stegodons in the middle. These 4 Stegodons that have the Skystreak Bow, they can shoot out of this deployment into your opponent. So you can hit with those big 3 damage bows, doing some damage for a turn or 2 until you finally charge in these Stegodons. So great screening units with these Knights, and they can do some damage once applied with the Starpriest. I also have 2 Stegodons as my battle line in the Battle Regiment, and they're a lot of fun. So that gives me 5 total Stegodons with 3 units of Knights and 2 Skink Starpriests into a 5-drop list for $19.95. So I'm a big fan of that list. I like these Knights as my screens to help keep my Stegodons alive so that I can charge with them when I want to and not let them be charged by the enemy. So great screens there. So conclusion. Let's look at the conclusion for Saurus Knights. I think 5 Saurus Knights are a great screen unit. I think that's how I'm going to be playing them mostly. I do think they probably are our best MSU battle line unit. They're 115 points. They're 10 points more than Warriors. They're more expensive than the Skinks. But if you're just looking for something that I need something to screen with, these guys are fantastic. If you're looking for something to score objectives, they have a decent save. They've got 2 wounds each. They're probably not going to battle shock off the board. These guys can fill that role for you. And I don't think I would spend my reinforcement points on them. I think they're great in units of 5. I don't think you get a lot of value out of adding extra units to them. So I don't think you should spend your reinforcements points on them. Spend those other places. They do need buffs to do any kind of significant damage, but they can apply that themselves. They can take these buffs pretty easily. They can give themselves +1 to save in any sub-faction they're in, or +1 to attack hit in any sub-faction they're in, and that's what they really need. They really do shine in Coalesce where they get those extra attacks. They're -1 damage. They can buff themselves. And you can do 15 damage versus a 4-up save with just 1 hero. So I think that Star Priest is a great addition to these guys. Without the Star Priest Mortal Wound, the lack of Rend does kind of hurt. And so if you're just taking them with no support, realize that they're probably not going to do a lot of damage. They can buff themselves up a little bit, but not having any Rend really hurts it. So pick your battles with them if you're looking to do damage without the Star Priest. Otherwise, they make a great screening unit, and I think they're going to see the board a lot more in some of my lists. All right, so that's it for Saurus Knights. Let me know if you guys have any lists that you're taking with Saurus Knights, and are you still in the Kotl's Claw camp? Let me know in the comments below. We'll see you guys next time.